Welcome to the BuiltOnAir podcast. We are in season 14, episode 4. Dan Fellers coming to you from a hotel room. Hopefully my internet holds strong this episode. Good to be back with you. We've got Allie, our regular guest or host with us. Welcome, Allie.
Hello.
And special guest, Kuovonne. Welcome back, Kuovonne.
Hello, good to be here.
Good to have you as always. You've been on the show a few times, so good to always have you back on. We'll talk more with Kuovonne later in the show. So I will walk through what we're going to be talking about today. The BuiltOnAir podcast is an hour long. We go through 4 different segments, keep you up to date on everything Airtable. We always start with our round the bases, with what people are talking about, what's new in the communities. Then a quick shout out to our primary sponsor, On2Air. Then Kuovonne will be going through some of her guides and tutorials that she has made available, many of them specific to scripting and how to do scripting in Airtable. And then Allie will walk through base, how to use line items with invoicing. Then a quick shout out to our community at BuiltOnAir and how you can join. And then finally, I'll go through the new record templates and how you use those, set them up and everything. All right, round the bases. So a few things. First, let's start with Airtable. We are 2 weeks away, right? It's not next week, it's the week after.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks. Okay. So
in 1 day.
2 weeks and 1 day. Yeah, it'll be Wednesday and Thursday. And so I don't know, is signups closed? I haven't heard. There might still be some slots open.
Last I heard, there were 3 tickets left. They might have gone by then, but it's not many spots left. If you want to go, hurry up and get your ticket.
Yep, daretable.com. There was a post that somebody posted in the Facebook group about whether it would be streamed, and Chris answered that it wouldn't. Last time they had some issues and so decided not to. But the cool thing that I saw in here, let's see, where is it? They are already working on Daretable Europe 2023. I was thinking 24. So that means this year in the fall.
Yeah.
It's like there's going to be another Daretable in Europe. So that's a nice little tidbit of information there.
That'll be exciting.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see if who's all going to be in Europe for that in the fall. So anyways, but 2 weeks, San Francisco at Airtable's headquarters. Sounds like there may be a few slots available if you haven't signed up. All 3 of us will be there. Kuovonne is speaking. Allie, are you speaking?
She got kicked off, and excellent. Can you let her back in?
Yep.
There we go. I am speaking. Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Very good. Okay, we'll have both Allie and Kuovonne as speakers, trainers, along with many other people, and get access to Airtable. I'm sure they'll be making some announcements or reviewing some announcements of, I know there's stuff in the pipeline coming. So I imagine by the time of Daretable, they'll be able to talk more about some new stuff coming out. So that will be exciting. We're excited to see everybody there. Reach out to us. All right, moving on. There was one other, let's see. I think this one I want to start. Okay. So this I first saw in the BuiltOnAir group. Jan, who goes by Databaser, posted a article on LinkedIn. I don't know. I assume maybe this was posted in the community forum. I didn't see it in Airtable's community, but highlighting a new feature as far as coloring list views. So if you have the new list view, you can color the rows. It looks like it puts a little bar in there. So that is one new feature. Maybe this has been out for a while and they just posted on LinkedIn.
No, it hasn't been out for a while. It was just released. It was something that actually frustrated me when they first came out with the list view. You couldn't use the color feature. So excited to see that reinstated or put there the first time, I guess.
Yeah. So it's the same approach that they take in kind of the normal grid when you want to color the records. It puts that line at the beginning. Now you can do that in list views. So I think that was the only feature announcement that I saw this week. So we'll go through, let's go this way. Got that one.
Yeah. Then there's the feature removal.
What was the feature removal?
Attachment URLs from formula fields.
Attachment URLs. Is that new?
Well, it was when they're removed. So when they went to expiring URLs for attachments, they said that they were going to invalidate the URLs that were produced in formula fields, but it didn't actually happen when they made the changeover until last week, when all of a sudden people were starting complaining that all of these dl.airtable.com attachment links are actually starting to fail now.
Yep.
Yeah. I didn't realize that just changed. Okay.
Yeah. So I think it makes a lot of sense because what happened was it used to be that all attachments had the same basic URL structure, https dl.airtable.com, and then it was a permanent link where even if you actually deleted your attachment, you could still get to that file at that URL. So it was a security issue because if you ever accidentally released that URL, anyone who got that URL could get your file, even if you had never made that file public, and even if you had tried to delete it from your base. So Airtable went in and they rearranged how they did URLs, and they went to a system of expiring URLs. So if you send out an email, you get an expiring URL. After 2 hours, that URL doesn't work anymore, so that you don't have this URL to your content just out there forever that you can't revoke. And they also have viewer URLs where you actually have to be logged into Airtable and then you can view it, but those don't expire. And then you had this weird thing where you had URLs in formula fields that were exposed, and what were they going to do with that? And the question is, you can't just turn it into a viewer URL or a expiring URL, because you would change the actual value of the formula. And if you have formula fields that are based on that, if you have other things that are calculating on it, you're going to mess up everyone's bases at, say, extracting out the file name out of that. And so you can totally mess up all the other downstream formulas. And you can't just change it so it's always going to be an actual valid URL the way the expirings are, because then you have to constantly recalculate those values. And that's just a mess. So they decided that they're going to keep the format, but invalidate the URL. That means that they had to get all the other systems first, where make sure the actual expiring ones worked. And that took them a while to get that worked out, because like sometimes we're having things where like they were expiring too soon or not long enough, and just get people used to that. And that's why here it is several months later when they're actually saying, okay, now we think they've got all of the kinks in that ironed out. Now they can actually take down those formula field produced URLs.
Gotcha.
So
what happened was, what happened is they finally invalidated these static URLs that you could extract from the formula, in the formula.
And one of the problem is it was really, really convenient to just use those URLs and say, put it in for a static image. Like say you had your company logo in a page designer block or in an email that you were sending out. People were just using those, and they might have even deleted the original attachment. And then everything was working, expiring URLs went out fine, and everything still continued to work. And then now they're invalidating those URLs, and now things are breaking.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting.
So what really sucks is that if all you have is that URL that was the attachment URL, there's no way of going back and tracing the links back to what the original file is. You have to manually find it yourself. But then once you actually find it, or find a closer version, you know, like if it's your company logo, hopefully you have that somewhere else. Then you can just upload it to some other service like BuiltOnAir that will host it for free. get a static URL from that, and then plop that into your page designer, into your email template, and then you can back in business.
Yeah. Yeah. Much easier said than done there. But yeah, so that could be impacting a lot of people, because there isn't a way where, so like if you look at these URLs, you can see it's cut off in the image, but you see the start of the ID. So each attachment has a unique ID, but there isn't a way to just extract that ID and then like create a new URL structure that would work. I don't believe. Like there's no static representation of attachments.
Not really. I haven't found a way where you can take that URL and then find out what the original attachment field in the original base is. What we ended up doing at my company was back in January, we actually painstakingly went through every single page designer block, every email automation, looked for every single thing where it was a static one, grabbed it. And then we actually hosted ours on AWS and then put in the AWS URL.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So basically, Airtable can't be your CDN anymore. That's officially dead.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're going through a portal, in which case it still seems to work. Because the portal seems to be grabbing whatever the current expiring URL is.
Right. Yeah, and some of the portal tools actually cache it for you, like put it on their own CDN. So then it's long living. So, all right, that's a good summary. Thank you. Let's see, a couple other things. I don't know if we need to call out every time there's an outage, but there was a pretty significant one last week. Actually, there was two. So one, pretty much everything was down. The website was getting a 504 error, I believe. And then there was one more. Let me find it. Oh yeah, with the forms, they were glitchy for a while, where like the buttons weren't working. I don't know if you came across that, where you tried to click on the ad for the linked records and they weren't working. I noticed a few people mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think they got this one back up in an hour or so.
Yep.
All right, let's see what else we got. Okay, this was a cool one. There was actually some pretty cool conversations in the BuiltOnAir community. This was just kind of a quick, easy solution from Jen. Shout out to Jen on this answer. So Veronique is asking, wants a calendar view and has like a grid of records that have dates, but they want a calendar view of what dates are not used within the records. And so Jen just, says basically you have to create another table that has a record for every date, and then you link the calendar views or the other table to those dates, and then you can create a view of dates that don't have links to them, and then that would show you the available dates, and then you put that view on a calendar.
Yeah.
Nice little trick of how to get the inverse, but it does require another table, and you probably have to create an automation that's automatically adding dates in the future as they come up.
Yep.
Yeah, systems like that's the initial one to set up. The thing about it is that you have to be very careful in your design of how you maintain it. Because, for example, one thing is you have to make sure that you don't like take a date record and drag it to a different date. If you're viewing that editable one, because that thing's messy. The other thing that's not so nice about it is you can't get a record that shows a range. You can see records on the individual dates that saying this day is available, but it's hard to calculate to say, well, actually, I have a range of 3 dates that are open as opposed to 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's true. All right, let's move on. We've got a few here. Actually, Kuovonne, you're in this one. So this is asking about scripting, basically saying they want a button that when pressed changes the article and has the script, and it doesn't seem to be working, getting an error message. Record from button field was not used. The script did not use the record from the button field to use a record. You call input record async. What were your thoughts, Kuovonne, on this one?
Can you go ahead and expand the script sample so that you can see it? Like, so the first thing I looked at this, and I've seen this a couple times, and my first glance when I'm reading through this is, was this a script that was generated by AI? Because if you know how to code, then you just do things a certain way. And what I notice in here is that you don't have things labeled. It's just not written the way someone who's experienced with writing code would write it, as far as like how you have things commented and how you have things called. Like I've seen someone's scripts where there'll be the name of the function that's declared, and then that function is never actually called. So it's just kind of like weird little things like that. And I'm just seeing more and more of those. And they don't necessarily actually work right because it's not using the actual grammar and syntax that's created. So my first thing was, I think this is AI generated by someone who knows enough to know that it looks good, but it doesn't actually have everything completely fleshed out in it. So for example, this one, if you scroll to the top, you'll see it says get status, and it says, you're inputting a record, but nowhere does the script actually get the record to begin with. So it doesn't know what record to use. And if you were actually writing a script yourself, you would recognize that and say, well, I have to go actually get the record somewhere. But the AI doesn't know that when it's creating this. And so that's an important part of the puzzle that it just doesn't have. Then the other thing, I don't know if it was this one or another one where the person actually wanted to have it where there is a, they wanted a button to be pressed, and they want the button to be pressed by a read-only user. And well, that's disabled for read-only users, so you can't even do that to begin with. And so if you go down this AI route, if you don't know enough about scripting, it's not necessarily going to give you a complete working script, and you're not necessarily know how to go back and say that. But it also might be overlooking the fact that you spend all this time writing a script that's actually not going to work for your full use case, because the person you want to push the button won't have the permission level to push the button.
Right. So yeah, they're trying to get around the read-only, paid user, but that's why the buttons are disabled, because you can't modify the data as a read-only user, even if it's running a script. Yeah. So the one thing I noticed just looking at this, which would lead me to believe maybe this part wasn't written by AI, because I think AI would have gotten this, but you notice they call main, which is an async function, but they don't have a wait in front of it. Mm-hmm. And I bet that that's the problem, because then none of this is going to work, and the error is related to this right here to get the record.
Yeah. Oh, actually, so this one, it does say input record async, but there's nothing inside the parameters where you need to have a prompt, and you need to have something that says what table you're getting the record from.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So those are two things. So maybe we'll update that and let Jawad know. But so yeah, anyways, good scripting advice. I think we'll get more of that in a bit. Let's move on. Okay, Ben asks, does the find record actions in Airtable automation seem slow to anyone else compared to the find records in other apps? Just talking about like third-party apps, Zapier and Make. So kind of using inside the automations, the find records versus using like the API. I think I like this one mainly because of the back and forth between Bill and Catherine, who recently joined the BuiltOnAir community, who used to work at Airtable, she mentions. And so there's you get some good insights into how Airtable works under the hood. So really good back and forth between the two of them in this thread.
Yeah, the big point is just because you think nobody's doing something inside an Airtable base doesn't actually mean that there isn't a lot of stuff going on in it.
Yep. So yeah, so good. If you're trying to optimize the speed of performance, this thread is good. It has some good tidbits on things to look at and what might be causing. I know, Ali, you've got experience working with. You're on the top 10 naughty list of Airtable abusers.
So you can see that now formula.
Yeah. Yeah.
That that's a big one.
Yep. So others as well. All right, moving on. Oh, we already did that one. So I think that's all from the BuiltOnAir community. Moving on to table forums, a couple interesting ones. So this post is from a while ago, back in March, about the changes to the home screen, but then somebody updated it. When they logged in, they're delaying the rollout of the new home screen based on feedback, no longer being forced into using it for now, at least. So it sounds like they maybe switched. It used to be they switched everybody over, or were starting to switch people over, but you could go into your account drop down and revert back. Now it looks like it might be more of an opt-in where you can switch if you want, but they're not forcing it. I don't know if you've seen that.
I was very happy when I was able to revert back.
I hate the new home screen, I have to say. It's terrible. I will be very sad on the day that they decide you can no longer extend.
Yeah. I'm kind of maybe more in the middle. Like, I like some things about it. I feel like there's still room for improvement, but I think they can find a workable solution with the new approach.
I'm same with you, Dan. There was actually a couple things that I liked about it. It's just that they broke some of the fundamental things that I used to do, like dragging a base from one workspace to another. That I do that a lot, and most people probably don't, but especially when I was working as a consultant and you have something in your base and you need to transfer ownership, you would do that. Or what I do a lot now is I have certain bases and I just move them to an archive workspace because I don't want to actively see it anymore, but I want to be able to retain access to it. And so I actually do drag bases around from one workspace to another or not. And that was just completely broken in the new interface. But I really do believe that they can come up with a better solution. I want to bring back to the ideas when we had the views sidebar. At first, they came up with a system that just didn't work. They went back to the drawing board. We heard nothing for it felt like weeks or months, and they came back with a beautiful new design on that, where it made so much more sense. They took in the feedback from all kinds of different people, what people wanted to do, and it was even better than what they used to have. So I'm very hopeful that they will come up and they'll pull another one out of the bag, that they'll say, here's how it works. They rolled out something that didn't work. They're going to go back to the drawing board and they'll come up with something that takes the best of all the different situations, that's totally different from anything we've seen and even better.
Yeah.
I sure hope so. Looking forward to that for sure.
Yep. That will be nice. But yeah, this one, this last comment says that he doesn't have the rollback option, which is odd. I feel like I've seen that in all of my accounts.
Yeah. It could be a situation where the rollback option has not yet been rolled out to him.
Maybe. Rollback the rollback. So, yep. So still in the works, the home screen. We'll see maybe more to come there. All right. Here's another one. I think, Kuovonne, you're in this discussion. Kuovonne is everywhere. Can records or fields read from extensions? So somebody asking if an extension or if a field can basically communicate with an extension in some way. How'd you answer this, Kuovonne?
Well, basically the answer is no, that formulas, they don't even know that extensions exist. So there's no way that they can go back. All that a formula can do is it can pull from other field data. And so what you can do is you can have your extension modify the editable data, and then the formula would pull from that. But I don't think that will work. And then later on in this thread, Bill brings up the idea that he really wishes that we could have custom formulas where you can define your own formula using JavaScript and then have that formula go and do whatever calculations. And then he points out that it's been a while since Google Sheets and Excel have had that, but it's just not there in Airtable yet.
Yeah.
So, but I think this is part of a trend of, we've seen a de-emphasis on extensions. And there was also recently a thread where someone was somewhere, I don't remember where someone was trying to get Page Designer to work, but the problem was they were trying to print from a view that had like 1,500 records, and it just was too many. And the answer is that you need to go and scale back your views so you don't have so many. And one of the ways that extensions works is they have the ability to watch all of the records in a view. But the problem with that is it's incredibly resource intensive. And so, say you have something like a dashboard open with just even a simple count one. Well, that count extension is constantly reading all of the records because that count could change at any moment as anyone creates a record or updates a record. And so that just can be a really big drain and it makes things a lot slower. So by moving away and de-emphasizing extensions, you're having fewer people that are writing extensions that are taking advantage of this fact that it's going to be watching every single record in however many tables, to hopefully not have that drain on performance.
Yeah, let's continue on that theme. There's another one from the Airtable community. I know this is near to both myself and Kuovonne and others. The future of extensions to BuiltOnAir, basically with the emphasis on interfaces and pushing users to use interfaces. What is the future of extensions? That's the question I know I have. I'm sure I bet Kuovonne, you have the same question.
Yeah. And I think that's a big question. And I think that Airtable probably themselves doesn't even really know. I think they're trying to juggle a lot of things. The one extension that I really, really wish that they would bring to interfaces is scripting extension. If they brought nothing else to interfaces, I wish they could bring that because scripting extension is available to everybody and it can do things that you cannot do with automations, an automation script. And I think that has the most potential to improve what you can do with interfaces. But maybe they're holding off because they want to have a more general approach because it really would not be good if they have just like this one-off, this is the one thing that you can do in scripting, but none of the other extensions work. But it's a big thorny issue, but they have many big thorny issues to deal with interfaces. And until then, when it comes to developing extensions, my focus has been more on what are utilities that can help the base designers, because they're always going to be in grid views, and less on extensions that would help the end users that need to be in a front end type of environment.
Yep. Yeah, totally agree with that. Very well said. All right, let's move on. Going to Twitter. Let's go here. So we had an example. We talked a little bit about how AI maybe wasn't perfect in helping. Here's an example from John talking about, says it's a video. It's actually a 2-minute video about how he basically used ChatGPT to write a server code to get all the Airtable records and kind of complete something. So there's examples of using AI where it actually works and examples of where it doesn't work. So still a mixed bag on the future of AI coding for you.
The way I see AI is it's AI is learning how to talk. It's learning how to speak both English, and then it's also trying to learn how to speak code. When a little baby learns to speak, it just babbles nonsense. And then gradually they say intelligent words, and then they string together sentences, and then they string together longer sentences, and then eventually they can speak in paragraphs. So what AI can do with these code is it can do words and sentences and phrases. It can't really do essays yet.
In code, yeah.
In code, yeah.
Full applications, yeah. Yeah, so good stuff there. All right, I think this is the last one. Shout out to Gareth. It looks like Philip Blacken, who runs a no-code ops community. They're going to be doing a live build a CRM in public together with Gareth. So a series, it looks like a month's worth of events where they're going to be connecting. And I assume Gareth's going to be helping him build his CRM. So if you want to see a CRM built in public, you can check out their channel. Likely it'll be on both their respective communities. So could be a worthwhile watching that. All right, so I think that's everything and around the bases, getting everybody up to speed on what's going on. So we'll give a shout out to On2Air. It's an all-in-one toolkit to run your business on Airtable. It's a suite of apps that help you do more with your Airtable. So if your business is dependent on Airtable, you need to check out On2Air at on2air.com and find out all the amazing apps that we have there. For today's shout outs, I'm going to go to Twitter. And I figured I'll have one of our customers, Peter, who was kind enough to do a case study with us, share in his own words what the On2Air backups has meant for his business. So let's see if this, I don't know if the audio will work. Let me know if you can hear it or if you can't hear it.
Can't hear.
No, you can read it. All right, so Charm and many others are using backup to back up their data from Airtable into Google Drive, Box, or Dropbox, whatever solution you're already using for your file storage. So check out On2Air at on2air.com and our backups at on2air.com/backups to learn more.
Mm-hmm. Highly recommend backups. Today is the 1-day anniversary of where I started my job at Luke Lampco, and one of the first things that I did was got them onto Air backups.
Nice. Appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Kuovonne is going to spill her secrets on scripting and all things Airtable. So if you want to share your screen.
I don't know if I would go that far. What it is I have a new initiative that I started, and let's see, how can do I click present?
Yeah.
Share screen. Share screen. Now, how do I pick which window? Yeah. Let's see, I think this is this window. Okay. Now how to see?
Yep. You're live.
Okay. All right, here we go. So what happened was I've been posting content about Airtable on different places for a couple of years now. The Airtable community forums, sometimes in Slack. I've been doing it on table forums and on Facebook groups. And I found that my content was getting split off into all these different places. And it was fun creating it, but like if I want to refer back to it, or there's just other useful comment that would go in, and then it would just be lost because it's on some old thread that's not the original post that you can't search on anymore. And I said, you know what? I wish I could just have one place where I could put my knowledge and the information that I want to put it together, and just have it all consolidated where stuff won't get lost. And I decided over this past weekend that, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and create a Coda doc where I can put it together. And I ended up creating 2 Coda docs. And I decided if you go here, it's https://coda.io/@Kuovonne. You will have to know how to spell my name in order to get there. But one of them is my guide to Airtable. And what this is it's a work in progress, but it is the different knowledge of that I think is important about knowing about Airtable. So I've got stuff about different field types where I say, okay, here are all the different field types. What's the data type that there are in there? Computed field types, how they work in scripting, stuff about formula fields, where I have my presentation from last year's Airtable conference. I've also got my beginnings of my style guide on how I write my styles for formulas, information on metadata fields, a lot of different other information that I think is useful information about Airtable and using Airtable that is not readily available on the website. And it's just my business take on how I'm doing it. And I just want to consolidate the information. So the plan is, like, rather than just writing a post that gets read by a couple people in a forum and then just is lost, that I'm going to put it all here. And if you love my content, you can just go here, and then you can just see all of it all together, hopefully nicely organized, but also in an ongoing way that I plan on maintaining this, so that if I have a new idea or a new formula that I think is the pattern is that you can see that's there. So for example, like here, I've got my common formula patterns. I've only been doing this over this weekend, right? So like I've put in like examples of the formulas here. So this is what it is for Airtable as itself, but then I also had so much other information about scripting. I said, you know what, I need to have another doc that talks about scripting. And so that's this one here. So you want to learn scripting. I think this is one of the most important pages to start off with is, do you actually want to learn how to write scripts, or do you just want working code? Because if you just want working code, you do something else. A little discussion of what you might want to think of if you want to have AI write the script for you. And then I get asked this so many times. It's, what do you do if you actually said, yes, I actually want to write the script myself, but where do I start? So depends on whether or not you know Airtable, depends on whether or not you know code. And then after that, go straight to the scripting documentation. Then this is the part, these free scripts, I think is what people might be most interested in. What it is every now and then I'll see like a particular use case come up in a form, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. And I'll write like a little script to do that, and then I'll publish it. And I'm like, well, maybe someone else will be interested in it. And I decided what I'm going to do. So I'll say here, so like here, this was a Facebook post where someone wanted to do a schedule of something to go out on the 2nd and the 4th Monday. There was a little conversation about people suggesting things. And if we look at these here, she'll said, okay, well, can you do the scripting option? And so I said, you know what, let me go ahead and write that. And so I wrote it here with the inspiration of saying, well, if you want to do something that goes out on the 2nd and the 4th Monday, just have your automation run every week, every Monday, and then have a script determine if it is the 2nd or the 4th. Mm-hmm. And so I walk through how to do it, how you get the date, get the day of the month, so on, determine whether or not it is. And this is how I thought about doing it. So for example, first he said, well, okay, if it's going to be in these days, but then we have another way and we can actually make that a little bit concise, so it needs a little bit less, set it out, and then we have the full script. So this full script, you see, it's only 4 lines long, and if we really wanted it to be shorter, it could be shorter. So it's not something that it's a script that I'm going to go and like sell, because it's so short, it has very little use case for people actually putting in practice, but it would be very useful to this particular person. And also part of it is to teach other people how to do scripting so that they see, here are the different steps. This is how you get a date. This is how you think through the logic. And then you think, oh, well, maybe I could refactor that logic to make it a little bit more efficient. And this is how you output it. And that helps people learn scripting, because I'm a really big believer that if anyone who wants to learn scripting and is motivated doing it, they should have the chance to do it. And this is a way of paying back all the free websites that I saw that taught me all the different tricks that I know. And well, just because I think I am offering, in a way of knowing whether I'm actually offering a useful service is, you know, if you found this was helpful, you can buy me a coffee, just give a little tip. It'll take you to my coffee shop where it's gone. And I did get, this one person did like it and gave me a little tip for that. So nice. Actually, I don't think it was this one. I think that one was for a different person. If we look here, I think this one might've been so I've tried to break them up. I think so. This is like an automation for a formatted timestamp. So for example, if you want to have a formatted timestamp that you want to use in an email, you have the timestamp that when the automation was run, but it gets an ISO screen, which is really ugly. You want something that's pretty. And so I talk through how you use the to locale string, explaining the different parts that you need. I give links to say, here's the different choices that you can include in them. And then at the end is the full script. So it's really a short script. It's not worth trying to charge money for, but you know, if it was useful to you, it might be worth it to give a tip, because I'm not going to keep rooting through this. If people aren't finding it useful, the way people tell me that it's useful is, you know, they fill that tip jar.
Nice. Very cool. This is good stuff. It's like, if you've spent any time in any of the communities, you've seen Kuovonne's name and how valuable her feedback and time spent on answering hundreds, thousands of questions. So compiling it all into one place is invaluable to anybody getting up to speed in Airtable. So this is an awesome resource.
As I said, if you want to learn scripting, I think it's better if you actually learn scripting than try and rely on AI for now, because the AI is going to have weird errors that you're not going to know how to debug.
Yeah, that's true. It's like, if you don't know what you're dealing with, like AI could get you close enough, but that last part is the hardest part.
Absolutely.
Well, and what are you speaking on at Daretable?
On Daretable, so let's go back a little bit here. So this is back to scripting. Let me go back to my guide to Airtable. One of the things that is one of my current kicks is the idea of metadata fields. So some simple metadata fields are like your created by, or your created time, or your last modified. This is data about your data. So not the data that's actually being used to run the business, but data that helps you manage it. And one of my recent kicks is the idea is that we have two other metadata type fields that I'm going to be talking about that are particularly interesting. One of them is data validation. So this section will be coming after Daretable. And the other one is going to be additional dependencies. So what these are, the idea is data validation is when you have, say you've got, if you have a form to someone creating a new record, you say, okay, we need to make sure that these 3 fields are filled out. You can do that when they fill out the form, right? But what happens after the fact that people are editing the data and maybe they like delete one of those fields? Well, suddenly you have invalid data. What if you have something that says, if you're going to choose, other as the single select option, we want to make sure that you filled in this text field where you actually type in what that other thing is. These are data validation issues. Airtable doesn't have a built way of doing that, but we can generate a formula field that says, okay, let's take a look at all these different conditions and apply in what is your business logic to say, is this set of data in this record actually valid? And so I'll be talking about why you want a field like this, how to construct a field like this, and why I think it's important to put it all in just have one field that puts it all together rather than having it scattered over in different places. Then the other metadata one is this additional dependencies. The idea is you've got your Airtable base and you can look there if there are additional dependencies. You can say, okay, when I try and delete this field, it gives me a warning. It says, actually, there's these 2 other formula fields. Well, it won't necessarily tell you what the formula fields are unless you're an enterprise, but it will tell you no matter what you're on. It'll tell you which formula fields are that depend on that field that you're about to delete. But the problem is say you have something else, say you've got a make scenario or a zap that depends on that field. It doesn't know that. Airtable will just let you delete it. So you can create another formula field that says, these are my additional dependencies. Here's on everything outside of this scope that's going to blow up if you delete this field. And so I'm going to show you why you want this additional dependencies field, how to write it so that you can document and say where things are, what they were used in. We actually had a situation where we had a field that no one was really quite sure what they were using out. It turned out that it was actually used in a page designer block and no one ever looked at it. They just printed the page designer block. And if we had actually deleted that field, it would have messed up the page designer block without people even really necessarily looking at it. So we went ahead and said, okay, in my additional dependencies, everything that's used in a page designer block, I'm going to put it there so that when we go through, we don't actually delete something that's used in page designer.
Very useful.
That's great.
Cool. That'll be a good segment. We will end this with a shout out from Zaki. If Airtable had a community member Hall of Fame, Kuovonne would be in it. For sure.
Agreed.
I think there are many people that deserve to be in it.
Yeah, for sure. But you are definitely in that group. So welcome. Thank you, Kuovonne, for sharing that. So we'll put a link to it, Coda, to your Coda sites so people can find you.
And my recommendation, just go to coda.io/@Kuovonne. because I've been changing the names of the files. So if you're trying to link to a specific doc or deep inside a doc, I'm not going to guarantee that any of those URLs are going to stay static.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on. Allie is going to share some invoicing and line items.
All right.
You're live.
Excellent. Okay, so this is a question I see getting asked, like, if not daily, definitely several times a week across all the different platforms. It's something that, like, really, I think once you understand this concept, like, it kind of helps you bring your Airtable usage to the next level. It's a good introduction to understanding a junction table, which I'm sure if you've done a lot of reading on Airtable and you don't know what that is, you may have seen that term tossed around quite a bit and been like, what the heck are people talking about? So hopefully this will kind of help to bring all that together into a pretty solid use case that I think many people will need and use on a regular basis. So here I do have all this built out, but I'm just going to kind of start off from like where I usually see people starting off from, and then they get confused and frustrated, and then we'll go into the solution. So here I've got a table of invoices. Just ignore the line items table for now. Invoices, and then I have a table of products here. I'll get rid of this as well, just so it's simple. So on the products table, I have a unit price field. I've got some other items or pieces of data about those items. And on the invoices table, I'm just saying the invoice number, the date, and it's linked off to a customer. And what I will usually see people do, and they're very first learning how to use Airtable, is they might link directly to that products table and say, well, here, let's say products on invoice. And they might say, well, I've got item A, item B on this one. This one's got just item B, and this one's got item C. And then they might learn how to use a roll-up field and roll up that unit price and sum that up, which is great if you only have one of each of these items. But what if on this invoice I actually have a quantity of 2 for item A and a quantity of 3 for item B, or any such numbers? You're not going to be able to record any of that data here using just these 2 tables. It's just, you don't have enough dimensions there to be able to get the data you need. So that's where a junction table comes in, which is super, super helpful and a very, very powerful thing that Airtable allows you to do, and a good way to structure your data when it's necessary. So I'm just going to delete this products on invoice field altogether. Don't need to worry about that dependency.
Delete the backlink.
Yeah, I know, right? I've got to just go over there and do that now. Thank you. Might as well. I wish that you could have that as an option, but
yeah,
it'd be cool.
Sorry, I just had to bring that up because I see so many people not delete their backlinks, and then their table is littered with this stuff that they don't know what it is. Good, carry on.
You see invoices 2, invoices 3, invoices 4 like a million times. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's frustrating. So then I'm going to just go over directly to this line items table and talk about how this is set up. So a junction table, how I would define it, is a table that's taking data from 2 different other tables and bringing them together into this one dimension here. So here I've got one row that's representing one product on one invoice, but here I can put in what that quantity is. I can pull over the unit price from the products table. I can then create a formula here that's saying the quantity times the unit price. I can get each line item individually what that subtotal is, and that adds up to the total cost of the invoice. Another thing that might be helpful is I actually have this unit price free text field here, because if we don't have this, right? So generally speaking, what I would do, and I haven't built out all of this all the way, is I'd say once you mark this invoice as sent, for example, you have like a status field on your invoices table. then I would write an automation that would take your unit prices and copy them into this unit price free text field. And if you look at my formula for unit price, I'm essentially saying, this is another little known fact I talked about last week on the show, is you can actually write if statements and other formulas inside of your rollup fields. So this saves you from having to have, multiple formula fields across the table. So basically I'm just saying, if I have unit price free text, if I have a value in that field, then I want to use that value. Otherwise, I want to just use the sum of whatever the unit price is for the value, for the product that I'm linking to. And why I want to do that is because, let's say I haven't set that up, and item A, 6 months down the line, I'm changing my prices and I'm saying, this is no longer $15. This is now $17. Now, when I go over to my line items, my subtotal and my unit price has changed. Even if I've already sent this invoice out a year ago, even, then it's going to change all of my historical data. But you can see here where I'm linking over to item A and I've frozen that value in time. It stayed as $15 and didn't change my subtotal or the whole total price of the invoice. So that's a mistake I see people making a lot. And it's hard to explain, but it's very important to make sure that you freeze those values in time, especially when you want to be relying on your historical data. Otherwise, things get messy.
Yeah. One quick comment is I noticed you use the word free text in the name of that field. So naming things is really tricky.
Yeah.
Maybe a different name because we actually have a number rather than the word text.
No, totally. Yeah. This is, I built this in 2019 and I used the word free text in 2019 and never changed it. Override. You know what I would actually do is say like unit price override even, because this would work as an override field. So if I wanted to be like, actually, this was $15, I could override it. Or maybe for this person's getting a discount or something. And obviously I'd maybe have something actually built in to allow for discounts, but if for whatever reason this product actually in this case was $20, you'd have the ability to override it. But yes, thank you, Kuovonne. Naming things is very important. So yeah, junction tables are super, super powerful to understand. But now when I go back to my invoices table, I'll actually unhide what I've got here. So I've got my invoice total. I've got my line items. I can actually still see what products are on that invoice in the same way I would if I had that direct link. But now I can actually set different quantities and see the actual dimensions of that product on that invoice. People sometimes ask like where the easiest place to like manage this is. And for me, I usually do it just directly from the line items table. Like even if you needed to start a new invoice, I would just hit the plus button, create a new line here, and then just say, all right, I'm starting invoice 10004. And then you can just go to town. Maybe you have a couple, lines in there, but really, really super simple. And yeah, that's about it.
Another thing that's really nice about having the separate line items table is right now you've got it grouped by invoice, but you can also have another grid view where you have it grouped by the product. So that way it's easier to see summary information like what are your different products and do you have some products that are being used in a whole lot of different line items?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, so we can see quickly item A is definitely getting the most usage, but I'm making the most money off of item C. Well, this doesn't include profit, but gross dollars, item C is winning. Other things you can do really nicely. I think I did actually throw together a page designer block in here. Yes. So this is super, super simple. It could be a lot prettier, but you can, build off having this junction table linked to your invoices, and build a nice looking grid view or table on that page showing what quantity and the price was and the subtotal for each item.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very useful. Yeah, you need to understand junction tables and how those work.
Fundamental aspect, understanding link records, understanding junction tables.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Let's give a quick shout out to our community at BuiltOnAir.com. If you are not in there, please join BuiltOnAir.com/join. Get you access to a Slack community of thousands of Airtable users and fans and experts, and lots of people helping each other out. So check us out at BuiltOnAir.com. Okay, we've got a few minutes and we don't need much to go over record templates. So record templates, if you have been following the recent announcements, so you'll find this in the tools section, although sometimes it's weird in some bases, like I'll see it at the top level. I don't know if they've finalized like where you find things, but I think for the most part now there's a tools drop down and you'll see record templates along with some other tools that are coming or available. And so what record templates are is basically, think of it as like default values for a record that you can use when creating a new record. And so at the base level, each of the fields have, or not all the fields, but some of the fields have default values. You can specify, well, URL you can't, but single text you can. Now you can do drop downs where you can specify in the field configuration what the default value is. But if you need something a little bit more dynamic and also supporting these other fields that don't have that default value, that's where you come to these templates. So in here, you can create a new template and you'll first pick which table you're going to be creating the template for. So one template per, or a template is associated with one table. And then once you pick your table, then it'll basically show you all of the values for all the fields in that table. This is the primary field, and you're essentially inserting default values that you want to specify in there. The cool thing is you can actually link to, you can actually set up linked records, and those links can either go to, let me show a blank one. Yeah, let me start over. So if you have a linked record, you can link to a new record, and it can be, where did I miss? There was an option to link to an existing record.
I've not seen an option to link to an existing record. I've only seen the ability to create new records, new linked records.
Yeah, I just saw it a second ago when I was playing. Maybe I was hallucinating like my AI does.
So if you've defined another record for the other table, you can do that, but not an existing.
Inside of here, gotcha. Well, that's already linked. I saw an option where it was, do you want to link to an existing record or create a new record? So that is somewhere.
Maybe that was when it was beta and they found it.
No, I
decided to not include that.
Just earlier today, I saw it when I was playing with this. But anyways, let's see. I think I did this. Oops. I think if I delete these, but you can basically, yeah, I guess not. So you can set up linked records that will actually get created when this record gets used. So you set up all your default values. You can set up the default values for the linked record. And then there's a couple ways that you can actually use these templates. So if you're in here, you can just click on the ... and create a record from this template. And that will automatically, if I go to the results table, that will automatically just add a new row, and you'll see there, and it basically inserts a new record using all the default values that you set in your template. You can also do the same down here in this add record. You can just click on add a blank one or add a record from a template, and this will show any templates that are associated with this table. And when you click on them, it'll add it. And this one didn't have any default value set, so it will add it there. The other way that is probably more powerful is if you're inside an automation. One of the steps that you specify is a create record step. And it gives you the option now to, once you specify the table, I believe this will only show if you have templates associated with that table, but it will allow you the option of using specific fields to create a record or from a template. And so you can specify from a template, and then it'll give you the list of the templates associated with this table. And then once you run this step, it will then create a record for that table using all the default values. Now, so that is kind of cool. The wish list is that you could maybe override some of these values dynamically so you like use these as true defaults. I guess you could then add another step because this will return the record for that just got created, and then if you needed to update it with more dynamic stuff from a previous step, you could do that in an update record step. The other thing I wish it could do is dynamically pick which template based off of a value. You could have a drop down that determined which template you wanted to use to create a record that was in a previous step. I wish it could be dynamic. You could re-implement that by using the advanced logic and setting up conditional logic, but then you'd have to have like a step for every template that you have. So if you have 10 different templates, you'd have to set up 10 different conditional logic steps. So there are workarounds, but those would be nicer if you could do that.
It'd be nice if you had an input variable type of thing that says this is the name of the template.
Yep. That would be nice. You could dynamically do that. So that is a little bit of how you use record templates. Be curious to know how people are using it in production. I'm probably not using it.
Of how you can use record templates.
Okay, what's the advanced step?
The other half is using record templates to update existing records.
Let's do that.
And the issue with that is it's more confusing because you have a record template, but you have an existing record that has certain cell values. And how do you merge the two of them? The logic that Airtable has said is if that field is blank in your record, but not blank in the template, then it will put that template value in. If there is a value in your record and it's a singular value, like a single select or a text field or a number, then you keep whatever value you had already. Or if you have a field that can take multiple values, like a multiple select or a multiple collaborators or a linked record field, then what happens is the two values get merged, the existing value that you had in the record and the template value. So any of three different things could happen when you update a record using an existing template, and it gets a little bit confusing.
Yeah. Because it doesn't give you any options on how that's going to work. Mm-hmm. That's good to know. Yeah, I haven't used that part of it.
Mm-hmm. So you can do this when you are in an automation, and you can also do that. I believe you can right click on an existing record in the grid view, and you can say update using apply template.
Apply template. That's right. Yeah, I have done that one. So it will backfill based off.
Yeah. So for example, there in your channels, you have a multi-select. What would happen is it would add any new channels that were in the template, but not here, and it would not take away any. On the other hand, on any of the other values, they would be filled in.
Yeah.
Or not. So Like I said,
So there-
3 different possible things that can happen.
And so this behavior would be the same. This is the same behavior as the automation update, the apply template.
It'd be the same as when you use an automation that says apply template.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, that is good.
Okay.
Good addition. Awesome. Thank you, Kuovonne. Thank you,
Yeah.
Ali, for being on the show. Another great episode. We will do one more, and then I believe we'll do a live one in person in San Francisco. So excited for that.
That's exciting.
As always, good to be with everybody, and we will see you next week on the Built on Air podcast. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.